Hello, everyone, and welcome to Full Time, where we take you around the world of soccer locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally. The Full Time podcast is presented and powered by 91 Network. You're listening to Season 5, Episode 28 of Full Time. I'm your host, Daniel Scarpino, and with me is our co host, Gitano Gallo. Before we begin today's show, we'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsors. The Full Time Podcast is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. With their 2 locations in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, you can download and access the Pizza Portal app so you can enjoy a delicious hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars today. The Full Time Podcast is also sponsored by Sioux Sports. To check out Sioux Sports and all of their articles, announcements, and streaming platforms, including True Host Media and True North Radio, visit SiouxSports.com as well as Sioux Sports TV on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. We remind our listeners that recordings of Full Time occur weekly or bi-weekly, and uploads to all of our platforms for public viewing and listening occur weekly or bi-weekly as well. Folks, we are delighted to welcome you back into this episode of Full Time, where we get to talk about the beautiful game. G, on this Victoria Day holiday, a very good morning to you, sir. How are you?
Yeah, good morning to yourself. I am doing fantastic. Just had a nice breakfast. Looks beautiful outside. What a way to kickstart the day, talking a beautiful game with you. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, man. It's a gorgeous day outside. Got outside this morning for a training session, and to talk the beautiful game with you to finish off the morning is certainly fantastic on my end. In today's show, we will discuss Europe's Big Five, the FA Cup final, a preview of the Europa League final, and local soccer. As always, if anyone would like to listen to our previous content, please check us out at Full Time on all platforms of 91 Network. And without further ado, Gitano, and to everyone who has taken the time to tune in here today, let's kick off. We get the party started with a final look into Europe's Big Five before the final match day of the season upcoming. For 3 leagues in Europe's Big Five, there is one more match day to go. For another 2 divisions, they have already wrapped up their seasons as of this past weekend. We first start with La Liga, who has its champion crowned, and that, of course, is Barcelona. Barcelona claimed the title with 2 games to spare, as Real Madrid can no longer gain enough points to catch the front runners. Gee, it was a good title run in La Liga this season. We won't call it great, but we'll certainly call it good. However, we had the likes of Barcelona, Real Madrid, and Atletico Madrid trading spots during the first half of the season. And then after that 25-game mark, it largely became a 2-horse race where Barcelona eventually pulled ahead and stayed ahead. The bubble never burst, Gitano. Barcelona, champions of Spain.
Yeah, so for kind of as inconsistent as they've been the last couple of years in their performances in the league, we were kind of both expecting. Obviously, the fantastic start under Hansi Flick wasn't too surprising. The new manager kind of boosts some new summer signings, but really thought they would kind of slip back into kind of the Barcelona of old, if you want to call it that. But Hansi Flick did just an incredible job keeping them, not even just like on course, but kind of above course. They've played so much better, both domestically and in Europe, than I was expecting this season. I really thought they would, crash out of Europe pretty early, and like kind of expected, a young group kind of in transition. Just incredible the work that he did, and they've just been phenomenal. Obviously led by Lamine Yamal, the 17 or 18.
17 years old.
Yeah, just a world beater already. Easily a top 3 player in the world right now. And again, we kind of expect them to hit this level. Maybe not this season, maybe in a year or two under Hansi Flick. So to kind of see them at this level already, it's a little worrying. In terms of Europe, obviously for us as not Spanish league fans, but pretty incredible to watch this season. Just and like they beat this Real Madrid side that brought in Kylian Mbappe on a free transfer. Spent however many hundreds of millions this summer, and like handily beat them in both El Clasicos. Beat them in, I believe, one of the Spanish League Cups as well. Like just manhandled this Galactico Real Madrid team. Just an extremely, extremely impressive debut season for Hansi Flick. and kind of the ceiling for this group. If this is going to be the floor, the ceiling is ridiculously high for them.
I'm glad you ended on that point because the ceiling is incredibly high, and I think moving forward for Barcelona, if they can keep this group of players together, if Hansi Flick can keep doing what he's doing, sky is very much the limit. But indeed, Barcelona champions of Spain, and what a season they've had both domestically and in Europe, and they certainly were a joy to watch. So look out for them again in seasons to come. Things are going to be contested until the final match day in Serie A, which has entertained us with the best title race in all of Europe all season long. Going into the final match day, Napoli is first with 79 points and Inter is second with 78 points. Gitano, it's pretty simple. If Napoli wins, they are champions of Italy. Anything other than that, it will be left up to what Inter does in their game to see what happens with the final standings. In the event that Napoli and Inter go level on 79 points each, Inter will win the title as they have a superior goal difference. Gee, this is literally final day drama at its peak. Everything is on the line here, and one of these two sides is going to win the Scudetto. What can you say for this, and what do you anticipate will happen?
Well, I'm going to start with anticipating what will happen. I have no idea. I'm not even going to try and guess. Both of them play mid-table teams, so Como, who are in 10th, and Cagliari, who are 14th. So it's not like they're playing, the absolute bottom of the barrel relegated teams, also not playing any kind of the top half, like European football looking teams. So it really could go either way here. Yeah, I am absolutely unwilling to make any sort of prediction. We've seen both teams play so well for like the majority of the season, but they both have these little kind of like bubbles of awful that has kind of led us to this final day showdown. Inter kind of a little closer to their off days, with 2 losses in their last 5, which is really going to sting them because that's 6 points are dropped. Even if they pick up a couple of draws in those games, that's 2 points that puts them top of the table. But yeah, I think this is going to be almost like almost uh, Man City and Man United, like the Aguero goal kind of atmosphere with these games. Um, I'm super excited as a fan to have both games on 2 TVs and just watch the chaos unfold. But yeah, in terms of predictions, I'm not even going to try and tell you a prediction. I cannot wait to just sit and enjoy it.
Yeah, the anticipation is incredible, and I think just the mere fact that it has gone to the final match day, we sort of said all season long that this was the best title race in Europe, and obviously this is case in point, being that it is going to the final match day and we don't know what's going to happen. If I'm just going purely on gut feeling, I'm going to say Napoli. I just feel like they might win it, and that Inter might have maybe half of their eye focused on the Champions League final, even though that they won't. They know that they have a lot of time between that game and the Champions League final. But regardless, I think it's just going to be total drama. And I, like you, I'm going to have my computer open here and my TV on here, and we're going to have both screens going. And I just can't wait for that final match day. It's going to be total drama. And I wouldn't be surprised if we come away with a big storyline in Serie A. In the Premier League, with the exception of champions Liverpool and currently second place Arsenal, European spots are on the line going into the final match day. Arsenal secure a top 5 spot regardless of what happens on the final match day of the season after they defeated Newcastle yesterday at the time of recording by a score of 1-0. So that means that they will be playing in the Champions League next season. As for the remaining 3 Champions League places, it's all up to Newcastle, Chelsea, Aston Villa, Manchester City, and Nottingham Forest to see who will get their respective jobs done and qualify for the Champions League next season. No matter what of the teams I just mentioned, they will all be playing in a European competition next season. I would say that Manchester City has the best chance to get into the top 5 because they have 2 games remaining, not 1. But may it be the Champions League, the Europa League, the Conference League, I would imagine that the main goal for all of these teams is to get into that top 5 so they could play the Champions League. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'll start with City needing 4 points to guarantee Champions League football. Hopefully are able to pull it off. The way they've played recently, I'm not overly confident. But yeah, European football nonetheless, I will be fine with. Um, the kind of, I don't want to call it a disappointing thing, but just the way the fixtures worked out is like none of these teams play each other, for a spot, because that would have just been kind of a little bit of bonus drama. Um, but yeah, I think it's going to be super tight. There's some pretty decent games. For Chelsea having to play Forest, which should be an incredible game. Villa have to play United, so that should be, I mean, as a City fan, watching United lose should be a pretty incredible game.
Yep.
So yeah, I think there's some excitement going around, but like you said, all these teams are going to end up in Europe regardless. So even then, I don't think any of these teams would really complain too much about Europa League. Look at Chelsea in a Conference League final right now. Like, European competition is European competition at this point. I'm pretty sure if you offer these teams, a Conference League spot or no European football at all, they're probably taking that Conference League spot. Um, but yeah, it should be again. It's gonna be one. It's not maybe not as intense as watching this area, but there's definitely be a couple screens going with all the different games, making sure table watching for every goal that gets scored, see who's going up and down. But it should be a really exciting end of the season here.
I agree, and it's one of those things that you just aim as high as possible, and if you happen to fall, you still get into a pretty good spot type thing. So to your point, if you can't get into the Champions League spot, your Europa League isn't that bad, and Conference League honestly is still European football, whereby if you win it, you get a chance to go to the Europa League the following season. So again, if you can get into that top seven, you're still sitting pretty healthy. So we'll keep an eye on the Premier League on the final match day, and we'll definitely have the on that right side of the screen, won't we, the table where we can see teams moving up and down. In Germany's Bundesliga, it's all done and dusted, and the final standings have been confirmed. With Bayern finishing first, it's Leverkusen who finished second, Frankfurt in third, and Dortmund who sneak into fourth. Those four teams will all play in the Champions League next season. SC Freiburg get fifth place, and they qualify for the Europa League, and Mainz get sixth, with them playing in the Conference League next season. In my eyes, a bit of a fall from grace from the likes of RB Leipzig and Stuttgart, but these are the teams who will be playing in Europe next season coming out of the Bundesliga, and subsequently that is a wrap on Germany's top flight for the season. Your thoughts?
Yeah, super disappointing from Leipzig. More Leipzig for me than Stuttgart. I didn't think Stuttgart were built for kind of longer term success. They had kind of a good crop of players for 2 or 3 seasons that kind of kept them in those European spaces. I kind of expected them to fall off a little bit. And we also know that Germany's maybe not like the top end, but like the kind of that second group of teams is pretty competitive. So I figured that they would kind of slip in and out of there. But yeah, really disappointed by RB Leipzig domestically and in Europe. They were just terrible all year. Considering the talent that they have in that squad, it's alarming. I would be a little bit worried if I was a supporter of theirs. Just kind of the dramatic fall off. They haven't kind of slowly tumbled down the league table. They went from Champions League football to now no European football at all. And also surprised by Dortmund for how poorly they started the season to turn it around, get some European football out of the season. Well, not just European football, Champions League football out of the season. Supremely impressive by them. Would have had them written off, honestly, pretty early this season, probably before Christmas. I would have said they would be lucky to be playing Conference League, but they went on a great run there, winning their last 5 in the Bundesliga. So yeah, incredible season from them, and a pretty incredible season overall in Germany.
Yeah, it was good overall. I did enjoy it. I was glad that Leverkusen tried to push until the final match day, fell obviously a little bit short. But in the case of Leipzig, what we also have to remember, to your point, they were one of the first 3 teams eliminated from the Champions League. It was them, Dinamo Zagreb, and another team that I can't really remember at this moment in time. But that is, again, to your point, it's not a slow, gradual fall. That's a massive drop off. And we're going to talk next week about a particular team in La Liga, and that, of course, is Girona, and how they've kind of really fallen off in the same way. So I would be a little bit worried if I'm a Leipzig fan, because that's going to be a huge bounce back that they will need next season. But that is a wrap on Germany's Bundesliga. Bayern are champions, and everything else has fallen into place for the European places. And out in France, the league table has also been confirmed, with league play finishing this past weekend. PSG, of course, as we know, won the league with 84 points. Marseille finished second, and Monaco finished third. Those 3 clubs will all be playing in the Champions League next season. Nice finished fourth, and they qualify for the Europa League. Lille grabbed fifth, and they will be playing in the Conference League. And in sixth is Lyon, who are not guaranteed European football quite yet, but they will play in a qualifier for the Conference League. This is a wrap on Ligue 1 for the season. What can you say for France's top flight?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much still par for the course. Really weren't expecting much different other than PSG running away with it. I will say they'll be a little disappointed with the end of their season. 1 draw, 2 losses in their last 5. Considering they only lost their first game of the season a couple of weeks ago, that'll be a little bit disappointing for them. But you look at the rest of the table, and it's shapes up pretty much kind of how we would have expected. No like big surprises, no real shocks. I will say though that it is a little bit disappointing to see Montpellier finish dead last, considering it was a decade ago, but they did win the league somewhat recently. I want to say it was 2010 or 2011 that they had won it. So to see them go down in dead last is a little disappointing.
Yeah, indeed. But mostly to your point, that things kind of shaked out the way that we had expected. Maybe you thought maybe a Strasbourg would have challenged a little bit more a team like this, but overall, the teams that got into the top six are usually the ones that are in contention. So France's Liga largely played out the way that we did think it would. And that is the final look at Europe's Big Five before we head into the final match week. And in our next episode of Full Time, we will review the Europe's Big Five for the final time this season. Now let's move things over to the FA Cup final. This year's final was contested between Crystal Palace and Manchester City, and we will take you through all of the events of the Cup final here and now. The FA Cup final started off with good balance and energy, which was to the fans' delight. It was, however, Crystal Palace who struck first in the 16th minute by none other than Eberechi Eze, who has been at the top of his game as of recent. Not long after that, VAR was called in to reassess a potential handball situation outside the 18-yard area against Palace's keeper, Dean Henderson. A controversial decision, but a sigh of relief for Crystal Palace fans as Henderson stayed on the pitch without consequence after the attack from Manchester City's Erling Haaland was deemed to be not a clear and obvious goal-scoring opportunity. After chances were traded between both sides, a penalty awarded to Manchester City in the 33rd minute left the referee with no choice but to point to the spot. In a relatively surprising event to most spectators, Omar Marmoush stepped up to hit the penalty instead of striker Erling Haaland. The penalty was saved by Dean Henderson, keeping the score at 1-0 for Palace. In the second half, it was wave after wave of possession for Manchester City, along with decent possession, along with decent chances as well in front of goal, but nothing doing. Palace did put the ball in the back of the net in the 58th minute, but it was quickly ruled out for offside after a VAR intervention. Among scoring chances, substitutions, and yellow cards, the final 30 minutes of the match had plenty of twists and turns. But in the end, Manchester City just couldn't find the breakthrough as Crystal Palace go on to win their first ever FA Cup in club history, defeating Manchester City by a score of 1-0. Gee, this is the game summary, but I will hand it over to you for your thoughts, opinions, and overall analysis.
Yeah, so I want to start it off congratulating Palace. They were incredible. And nothing that I'm about to say takes away from how good they were in that game. They were fantastic. They set up pretty much how I expected them to sit in deep, hit on the counter, how they have played against City for basically the past decade now. And they played it to perfection. They were solid defensively. I would say pretty limited chances. City didn't create too much in terms of high danger stuff. So yeah, just an incredibly well drilled team. Got their tactics pretty much spot on. I will say that Dean Henderson absolutely should have been sent off. I have no idea how VAR. I get the ref not seeing it, but that's the point of VAR is to be like, hey, like you missed it. It's pretty obvious. Like I haven't, in terms of my looking, haven't found a single commentator or like pundit who has said otherwise. Like everyone, like Wayne Rooney, diehard United guy, says he should have been sent off. Like, and as soon as he didn't get sent off, I was like, he is going to put on a man of the match performance, be incredible, and be the reason they win this cup. And sure enough, he was. And again, that's not. I'm trying. I don't want to blame the referee because again, Palace played fantastically. But yeah, like there's no way Dean Henderson should have been on the field after that. And yeah, it was just the story of Man City's season. You can have the ball all you want, don't create anything dangerous. Kind of the only bright spot in that entire game was Claudio Echeverri getting his first minutes. Why Pep chose an FA Cup final when we're down a goal to give a 19-year-old his senior debut. I don't really understand, but he looked fantastic when he was out there, created a couple chances, had a couple chances for himself. But honestly, the kind of silver lining for me in all this is that City don't have to play in the Community Shield next season, which has seemed to be a bit of a curse for us. Every time we win it, we have an awful season. So the fact that we just don't have to play in it next August or September is fine by me at this point. And kind of the overarching disappointment for me is just not seeing KDB win that final trophy for City. He's got his 2 Premier League games left, and that's it for him. So it's a little bit of a bummer way for him to go out. But at the end of the day, that's kind of how this whole season's gone for City. I wasn't expecting, anything too different from this, if we're going to be totally honest. Was obviously maybe hoping for a little more. But yeah, that's been the story of 24-25 City. So again, as disappointed as I am, I'm not surprised.
And Gitano, I do have to say, like, to see Crystal Palace win it for the first time in their club's history, I thought that they played well. And Crystal Palace is a very underrated team, by the way. Like, they have a lot of good players in that side, and they're a lot of fun to watch. But kind of the system that you alluded to, we always knew that Crystal Palace was going to sit in, basically a bank of four, a bank of five, and just try and hit on the counter, and that's exactly what they did. But if you take a look at maybe some of the chances that City had, were they great? No, but Dean Henderson did come up with some big saves and moments. But I was really wanting to pick your brain. I certainly don't want to drudge up, anything painful, if you will. But what was your opinion on Omar Marmoush taking the penalty? Because I'm not going to lie, watching the game, me at home, I'm thinking to myself, Holland's going to step up, he's going to roll it into the corner, and that's going to be, 1-1. Were you shocked in terms of Marmoush taking the penalty as a City fan, or is it just because I'm not a City fan as to why I was surprised?
I mean, Omar, let's not act like Omar Marmoush is like not one of the best strikers in Europe. He's still finished second in the Bundesliga in terms of goals and goal involvements, like goals and assists, and he didn't play for half of the season in the Bundesliga. Like he's not this like kind of nobody striker, youth guy. So like to have the option of Holland or Marmoush taking a penalty, like as a City fan, I didn't think much of it. Like they're both elite forwards. Like would I have preferred Holland to take it? Probably. But I also thought, if Holland just wasn't feeling it, like, okay, hand it off to Marmoush. Like, I would rather him not feel it. If he didn't like it, didn't think he was going to score, I would much rather him hand it off to somebody else and say, okay, like, I wasn't feeling it, rather than him going and blowing it himself. You know what I mean? And especially because he's Erling Holland. He's the number 9. He's the big guy. I would, if he wasn't feeling it, I'm I've never taken a penalty in my life. So like I can't imagine the pressure of a penalty in an FA Cup final at Wembley, like down a goal. If he wasn't feeling it, he wasn't feeling it. I have no issue with him handing it off. I have no issue with Marmoush stepping up to take it. Obviously, I wish the penalty was a little bit better, but like again, these are world class forwards we're talking about. It's not like he handed it off to like you know our left back to like Nico O'Reilly, the 20-year
Right.
old to take. He handed it to Omar Marmoush, one of the best strikers in the world as well. Like it's to me no real difference. If it was up to me, yes, Holland would have taken it. But to see him hand it off, I wasn't worried in the moment. Like I said, obviously wish he would have scored. Who wouldn't? But yeah, it wasn't. I don't think it's as big of a story as kind of the media is trying to make it out to be.
I think you summarized that well, and I kind of reflect back to just from an Arsenal perspective. When we played United in the FA Cup, it was Martin Odegaard who stepped up and took a penalty, and it was saved. And everybody's like, "Well, he shouldn't have taken it after." But at the same time, it's like whether it's him who takes it, Saka, Jorginho, even Kai Havertz, like you'd almost trust any of them. And hindsight can make anybody a genius. Like, oh, I would have picked somebody else. It was just the only reason I was surprised is because when I typically watch City, if they do get a penalty, it's just automatic that Holland seems to have taken them in the games that I've watched. So I was just like, that was just my automatic assumption in my head. Holland will step up, he will take it, the game will be 1-1. Then I saw Marmoush and I thought, oh, that's different. But irrespective of that, I think your points are well taken that Marmoush is still a top class, even a world class player. So for him to step up and take a penalty, you're probably never going to be mad with that. But in the end, Gitano, that is a wrap on the FA Cup. And your champions for 2025 for the first time ever, Crystal Palace. This is Daniel Scarpino and Gitano Gallo, and you are listening to the Full Time Podcast on 91 Network. A reminder that Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza and Sioux Sports. Check out the Pizza Portal app for a quicker, easier way to get your next hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars. And be sure to check out Sioux Sports at siouxsports.com and Sioux Sports TV on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. The Europa League final is a mere 2 days away at the time of recording, and the final will be contested between Tottenham and Manchester United. Gitano, I have to say that this year's version of the final hardly even feels like a final, and I'm genuinely not being sarcastic. This is really the way that I feel. It doesn't feel like a final to me, but what are your initial thoughts?
My initial thoughts are just cancel the final. Like it's just neither of these teams over the course of this season, even their play in the Europa League itself, not just domestically or in like domestic cup competitions. Neither of these teams deserve to be playing in a final. Neither of these teams deserve to be sniffing European competition next season the way they've played. Um, I think it's embarrassing that these are your two finalists. It's embarrassing that one of these teams is going to qualify for European competition, considering they have had two of the worst seasons in Premier League history,
Yep.
and really are only still in the Premier League because three other teams have had three of the worst Premier League seasons we've ever seen. Um, yeah, it's just a nightmare fuel final, if we're going to be totally honest. I don't want either of these teams to win. Neither of them deserve it. It's just going to be awful.
It is going to be awful. And I always complain, not complain, but I always just make a point that for the way our work schedules work, we can always really only catch the second half. I'm glad that I can only catch the second half. I wish I wouldn't have to catch any of the game, quite frankly. I don't want to watch it. I'm not happy that either of these teams are in the final because, to your point, they don't deserve it based on the seasons that they've had, the turmoil that each of their clubs are in, and the fact that one of them is going to be playing in the Champions League next year because of it, as far as I'm concerned, is disgusting. But at the end of the day, these are the rules of the competition. Nobody complained at the start. I didn't. This is the way that it's worked out. And basically, here we are. And just to kind of paint the picture for the types of seasons that these two teams have been having, we'll first start with Tottenham. In all competitions this season, they've played 58 games. They have a record of 25 wins, 8 draws, and 25 losses. They are currently 17th in the Premier League, which is just one place above the relegation zone with one match remaining, to your point. 21 of those 25 losses that Tottenham have come in the Premier League this season. They hold just 38 points, their lowest total in the club's history in a single season. Tottenham did reach a Carabao Cup semi-final where they were knocked out by Liverpool over 2 legs. Manchester United, on the other hand, they're no better off. They have also played 58 games this season. They've won 26, drawn 12, and they have lost 20. They are currently 16th place in the Premier League with 39 points, just 1 point better than Tottenham. And much like Tottenham, those 39 points that Manchester United, hold, is the worst that they have achieved in club history in a single season as well. Manchester United played in the Community Shield at the beginning of the season where they walked away empty-handed after losing to last season's Premier League champions Manchester City. Gitano, in a nutshell, this is the season that both of these teams have had, yet they will compete for a European trophy and a chance to get into next season's Champions League. Make it make sense.
I can't. It makes no sense. The runs they've gone on in this competition to me make no sense. Again, United are one of the worst teams in Premier League history at this point. Not even at the kind of the actual 40-point mark with one game to go. Yet they somehow crushed the fourth best team in Spain. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it. Tottenham at least had I don't want to call it an easier run, but a slightly kind of less challenging run. So it's not a huge surprise that they kind of managed to worm their way through those ties. But yeah, it's just awful. I don't want any part of this final.
No, me neither. And only because we have this podcast together and because we owe it to the people who watch our show is the reason why we're covering it. Otherwise, we wouldn't even bother to even have a word about it, let alone a whole segment dedicated to it. But in this competition specifically, Tottenham have won 9 games, drawn 3, and lost 2, while scoring, on average, get this, less than 2 goals per game. Manchester United is actually unbeaten in this competition despite not playing well, and they're the only unbeaten team in all 3 European competitions this season. They've won 10 games and they've drawn 4, and they've had to come from behind in many of those games to do so. Gitano, if we disregard the dismay of these teams this season and only focus on this competition, what would you make of their runs in the Europa League?
Again, you'll look at United's, being unbeaten and say impressive, but you look at how many times they were a minute, 2 minutes away from, being eliminated and somehow pulled 2 goals out of absolutely nowhere. It's again, you want to, if you remove the fact that it's United and you look at it, you go, oh, it's pretty like impressive magical run. But you look at how just awful United have been the entire game up to those last 2 minutes where they pull 2 goals out of nowhere. Um, and it's shocking that they have not only made it this far, but like unbeaten, the run that they're on. Um, and Spurs, again, like they haven't had as challenging ties as United, um, and for just kind of how poorly that squad is built, if we're going to be totally honest, the injuries they've had, specifically in defense, it is shocking that they've made it to the final.
I am. I would. I'm just surprised. Can't say pleasantly surprised or whatever. I'm just surprised in all aspects that both teams are here, and that again we have to talk about it. But uh, ultimately, Gitano, it's a final that probably none of us would have predicted. Not many people wanted to see, and ultimately, it's a final as we just discussed that makes very little sense, if any at all. That being said, both of these teams are in a European Cup final with a chance to add a significant trophy to their cabinet, gain some financial profit, and get themselves a spot in next season's Champions League. Gitano, who is going to win this final, and what will the score be?
I'm going to do both of our predictions right now because I'm pretty sure I know yours because it's the same. It's the inverse reason for mine. I'm going to
Yep.
pick Spurs because I don't want to see United win. You're going to pick United because you don't want to see Spurs win. Um, I don't care for the score. I don't. I don't. I This game could be, it's going to be either like the most boring 1-0 you've ever seen or like 7-8 after extra time. Like it's just going to be, there's no in between. It's just going to be awful. And I would prefer if neither team won, but I will take Spurs because I can't stomach seeing United win, and you'll take United because you can't stomach seeing Spurs win.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. We're both just going to pick our lesser of two evils. Either way, it's just going to be awful. But in terms of the score line, I kind of like what you said. It's going to be 1-0 or someone scrapes it and just gets over the line, or there's going to be 6, 7, 8, 9 goals in the game. It's not going to be any in between. I can't see it, but probably going to go more towards the former, that it's going to be a squeaking, 1-0, maybe 2-1 at most. But yeah, not looking forward to this final in 2 days' time. But nevertheless, it will be played, and somebody is going to win it. Someone's going to win a European trophy. Someone's getting into the Champions League. The Europa League final takes place on Wednesday, May 21st at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And in our next episode of Full Time, we will review this game for you all. Moving on to something a little bit more cheery and positive, it is now time for a local soccer update. League play in the city of Sault Ste. Marie's high school soccer circuit has come to a close, and this week commences its playoffs. Again, at the time of recording, today is the Victoria Day holiday, so everything's kind of shut down, nothing's going on. But playoffs do commence this week for senior level. In both junior boys and junior girls, the finalists have been confirmed, but this upcoming Wednesday will see a 4-match semifinal evening at Superior Heights Field for senior boys and senior girls soccer, with the finalists to be confirmed. Gee, we talk about high school sports being a spectacle to watch here in the city of Sault Ste. Marie and something that our community can really get behind. Semifinals this Wednesday at Superior Heights Turf for senior soccer. What can you say for that, sir?
Yeah, it should be an incredible night of soccer for the city. Um, Again, like with this kind of condensed season, it feels like just started. But now we're talking about playoff semifinals, like the highest stakes games we've seen played thus far this season. That turnaround must be pretty incredible for the players and the coaches, kind of already be at this moment. And I feel like that kind of almost like the excitement of the season starting is still fresh, and we're now adding playoff semifinal excitement on top of it. It should be an extremely fun night.
I would think so, and I'm really looking forward to seeing those games in action, to seeing the outcomes of them at senior level. And for those who are looking to get out and watch all the action, semifinals for the senior divisions kick off at 4, 5:30, 7, and 8:30 p.m. at Superior Heights Field on Wednesday, May 21st. In the senior girls semifinal, it will be St. Mary's who take on White Pines, followed by Cora, who will go up against Superior Heights. And in the senior boys semifinals, Cora will take on St. Mary's, followed by Superior Heights up against White Pines. And Gitano, at the time of recording, this will be our final opportunity to discuss and give a shout to all of our listeners regarding the city finals. So for those who are intending to come out and watch the city finals, the biggest games of the season, for all divisions in high school soccer, the finals will take place on Monday, May 26th at Superior Heights Turf. The junior girls final will kick off at 4 p.m., followed by the junior boys final at 5:30 p.m. The senior girls final will be played at 7 p.m., and the night will be capped off by the senior boys final at 8:30 p.m. Gee, it's exactly 1 week remaining of high school soccer action locally now that league play is all wrapped up. What can these 7 days mean to athletes, coaches, athletic departments, and supporters of high school soccer?
So we've talked about it kind of every year, but for a lot of these players, this is going to be the highest level that they play at. So for a lot of these players, this is maybe the biggest week of their athletic careers, if you want to call them careers. Yeah, it's hugely important, and obviously nobody wants to lose, but to kind of look at your high school experience, especially for the senior players, I'm specifically more talking about them right now, but like to kind of cap off, your high school experience winning a league or like a city title. Um, it's just again for a lot of these players as big as it's ever going to get for them. So for them, this is an absolutely huge week.
It really is, and the opportunity to be able to be a part of this as a player, as a coach, as anybody involved, I think it's a great opportunity and something that everybody will relish. But specifically for the player's sake, and to your point, at senior level, it's something that they certainly will never forget. So a great opportunity for everybody involved. And in our next episode of Full Time, we will take you through the results and outcomes of the playoffs. This is Daniel Scarpino and Gitano Gallo, and you are listening to the Full Time Podcast on 91 Network. A reminder that Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza and Sioux Sports. Check out the Pizza Portal app for a quicker, easier way to get your next hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars. And be sure to check out Sioux Sports at siouxsports.com and Sioux Sports TV on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Full Time. As we bring today's show to a close, we want to extend our deepest level of gratitude to all of you for being with us. Your support means the world. Gee, well done this morning, my friend.
Well done to you as well, Scarps. Hope you enjoy the rest of this beautiful day, this beautiful holiday, and have a wonderful rest of your week. And good luck in the high school soccer, because I hope you guys win it.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. I hope you enjoy the rest of this long weekend as well. A reminder to our listeners that the next episode of Full Time will be recorded the week of May 26th, 2025. In that show, we will take a look at Europe's Big Five for the final time this season. We will take a look at the Europa League final outcome, unfortunately, of the Champions League final, and we will also take a look at local and regional soccer. As always, we'll keep everyone in the loop with all of the happenings in the world of football. For weekly content, make sure to hit like, follow, and subscribe to all platforms of 91 Network on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, Podbean, and Spaces at sutoday.com. For Gitano Gallo, my name is Daniel Scarpino, and thank you for tuning in to Full Time. We look forward to seeing you at kickoff next time back here on the Full Time Podcast and 91 Network. Best always.